kind of. All right, so Proverbs 24, verse 1. And let's start off. It says this. It says, "Be thou not envious against evil men, neither desireth to be with them. For their heart studieth destruction, their lips talk of mischief. Through wisdom is a house builded, and by understanding is it established. By knowledge shall the chambers be filled with all precious and pleasant riches. A wise man is strong, yea, a man of understanding increases in strength. For by wise counsel thou shalt make thy war, and in the multitude of counselors there's safety." A lot of rich verses here. All right, I mean, any one of these could become its own series, but I want to look at them as a kind of a group. As you go through this, what it's trying to do is it's trying to get us to change up our thinking. We can get into the point where we despair or we give up on what we believe because it just doesn't seem to be working right now. And what he's trying to do is he's trying to readjust us to have kind of an eternal or a long-term view on things. Of course, there's things that will not work in the moment, but they will work over time. And that's what he's trying to get at here. He's like, hey, you are looking at things, and it's funny, I was listening to a song a guy wrote, and the whole joke of the song is we just constantly chase the next number, and oh, I've got so many followers, I've got so many guys who like me, I've got so many listeners, and the whole joke of the song, written by a guy who has like millions of followers, he's like, I just want another follower. And we're just constantly chasing, and the whole point of the song gets to the point that no matter what number you have, it will not impress the digger, and when you're put in the ground, nobody will care how many followers you had. And that was the whole song, is just kind of this play on words of like, the number gets bigger and bigger, but nobody will be impressed when you're put in the ground. And that's what this verse is trying to say. We get so impressed with, look at that guy, look what that guy has, look what that guy has. And I found this even with myself, like, you know how it is when you have social media or other thing, you're like, how many people are following me? And it's like, I'm a bigger person than that person. It's like, but I'm also way smaller than that person. And what you find yourself doing, this is why the Bible will say things like Proverbs 23, that, hey, put a knife to your throat if you're a man given appetite. Why? Because those who desire to be rich will be tempted to do whatever they can to get rich. And then you get into Proverbs 24, and it says, don't be envious against evil men, because you know what you will be tending to do to acquire what they have. And that's why it's saying, do the wise thing, do the right thing, do it God's way, think long term, and these things will work out. And that's where we go today, because I really want to just have a really candid conversation, because I want you to see where these Proverbs go, and I want to ask you this question: are these Proverbs true? Now, of course, you're looking at it going, well, they're in the Bible. Of course they're true. But why do they have to be repeated over and over and over again? Why does the same statement have to be made again and again and again and again, just different ways? Because in the moment, we forget that they are true, and we start getting tempted to do otherwise. So I want you to see this, because look where it goes, okay? So it's trying to get our mind to kind of be reoriented. All right, and so it says, hey, if you're going to go start a war, you better have wise counsel before you do that. Hey, if you're going to do this, multitude of counselors, there's safety. And okay, and that's why sometimes you'll have like an odd number of counselors, so that way you always have a majority. And what are you doing? You're trying to get as many different perspectives on these things as possible, because someone's going to see something a little differently than you do, and again, you have a multitude of counselors to help keep you safe. You go further, wisdom is too high for a fool. So this foolish man is going to be the type who goes, yeah. I mean, you say that, but I don't believe it. I remember a friend of mine back before I was married. I was really, really struggling with a relationship thing, and I sat down with this guy, and this guy he basically he sat me down at dinner, and he said, I was engaged, and my fiance broke off the engagement, and he said, I lived in frustration trying to get back with my fiance who broke it off. And he was kind of commiserating with something I had been going through. And he said, it wasn't until I finally moved on and just said enough that finally I was able to break free. And then I started dating the woman I married. And he said, it just you had to just get over it and move on. And he tells me that, and I'm sitting across the table from him, and I go, well, yeah, that's true for you. But you know how this goes. But not for me. I am the exception. Well, I am here on record to say I am not the exception. And the moment I finally decided I am going to give up on so-and-so, and as you can tell, I moved up in the world. And that's what I had to listen to his counsel, which I didn't agree with at the moment, because I didn't want to agree with it in the moment. Candidly, I didn't want what he had to say to be true because it was uncomfortable for me. But he spoke the truth. And that's this idea where wisdom is too high for a fool. The fool's going to hear the truth. He might even know it's the truth, but he doesn't want to listen. Wisdom is too high for him. He openeth not his mouth in the gate. And so this idea is like he has a leadership role, he has a rulership role, and he's not even doing that. Like he's not doing what he's supposed to do. He that deviseth to do evil shall be called a mischievous person. The thought of the foolishness is sin, the scorner is an abomination to man. And then it says this, if thou faint in the day of adversity, thy strength is small. A lot of really, really good proverbs. But what I want you to see is it's saying, if you are a wise person, you're going to have a long-term view of things. You're not thinking for just the right now. You're not thinking in just the short-term comforts and short-term pleasures. You're thinking long-term, which means a momentary setback is exactly that. And so you get up and you forge on and you keep going. But if you're a fool, you're thinking about right now, right here, what I want right now. And that's why when you get that setback as a fool, you go, this isn't working. I give up. And it says, if you faint in the day of adversity, what? Your strength is small because you're thinking like a fool. You're not enduring. You're not strong. But look where it keeps going. Okay, verse 11, if thou forbear to deliver them that are drawn unto death, those that are ready to be slain, if you sayest, behold, we knew it not, doth not he that pondereth the heart consider it? And so this fool is this person who's sitting in the gate. He's supposed to be ruling on behalf of the innocent, and he's choosing not to do it because it's not convenient for him at the moment. That might not be the most politically expedient thing to do at the moment. So I'm just going to turn a blind eye to it. You see the progression of thought here. It's a fool who's sitting in the gate, who's supposed to be ruling, who's supposed to be making the tough choices, but he's thinking short term rather than long term. And so he's making some of these exceptions. He's being unjust. And the Bible is saying, you don't realize that there's going to be an eternal consequence for what you just did. Sure, it worked out for you in the short term. It worked out for you temporarily. Congrats. You're going to have momentary comfort. But you know what's going to happen long term. Now it's building to the midpoint of this chapter, because look what happens. He says, if thou sayest, behold, we knew it not. Obviously you're lying. Doth not he that pondereth the heart consider it? And he that keepeth thy soul, does he not know it? And he goes, shall he not render to every man according to his work? You're going to reap what you sow. And then verse 13 is also coming back to that long-term view. And it says, hey, you know what? Maybe you should enjoy a little bit at a time rather than gorging yourself. Okay, there's a lot of principles that are played out here, but I want to move to a certain point here. He says, my son, eat thou honey because it is good, and honeycomb because it is sweet to your taste. So enjoy the good, but as you see in other passages, don't overdo it. So shall knowledge and wisdom be unto thy soul when thou hast found it. There shall be a reward, and thy expectation shall not be cut off. So enjoy these pleasurable things. Go for it. Enjoy knowledge, enjoy wisdom, but make sure you're doing it the right way. And then at verse 15, it says this. Lay not wait, O wicked man, against the dwelling of the righteous. Spoil not his resting place. For a just man falleth 7 times and riseth up again, but the wicked shall fall into mischief. Now I want to stop and I want to meditate on this verse specifically. So we've kind of seen the lead up. The lead up has so much good stuff there. Like maybe we'll come back to it, but I want you to see all that good stuff. And it basically is saying, think long term about this stuff. You can't think short term. Okay? If you faint in the day of adversity, or you choose to turn a blind eye because, oh, that person, it's inconvenient for me to help them right now. There's going to be really, really serious consequences. So you think long term, you think, as we would bring up last week, godly. You bring God into the picture. What does God think about it? What does God want? And he says, he that is higher than the highest will consider what you've just done. And he will judge every man according to what he's done. And so you see that layout. So we started 2 weeks ago. We talked about Laodicea. We said stick close to the source. Then last week we looked at this idea of godliness being, I'm going to think God's thoughts on this matter. I'm going to make sure I'm internally holy and make sure my actions are righteous. So we walked through those 3 words. And then what this is doing is saying, take that long view of things and make sure you've got God's perspective in mind. And this points right at a wicked man and says, don't you dare come after a just man. Because a just man will fall 7 times, but he'll get back up. But I want to stop, and this is where I want to ask this question, is that true? Because think about what this parable is, or this illustration. Okay, 7, scripturally speaking, is like a complete thing. Okay, a lot of times you'll see that word 7 reference to be like it's done. It's like the perfect amount. It's when the disciples go to Jesus and they go, how often shall we forgive? And they throw out the word 7, kind of like this. Okay, like this is like the perfect number. So obviously, 7. And Jesus goes, no. That's 70 times 7. Like the completest of the completest. And I want you to think about it because it says, a just man will fall 7 times. The idea of like, he's completely defeated. He's completely beaten. He's completely crushed. But what does the Bible say will happen to the just man? He gets back up. Is that always true, though? Like I want you to stop, and I want you to think about what happened to every single one of the apostles, except for maybe John. They were martyred. They were killed. That was a pretty complete destruction. They didn't get back up. They were dead. What happened to almost every one of the prophets? They were persecuted to the point that most of them were killed. In fact, Jesus, when he's talking to the apostles and the people who are going to come after him, he's like, they will drag you before the judgment seats. They will kill you. They will persecute you from place to place. And yet Proverbs says a just man falls 7 times. Like he completely gets obliterated and he gets back up. And you go, except that guy who got sawn in half. And that guy who, look at Hebrews 11. All right, if you don't believe me on this one, okay, hold your place if you have a little like sticker in that. But I want you to look at Hebrews 11 because Hebrews 11 is the hall of faith. And it's the faithful people who have gone through history. And I want you to see what happens to faithful people. Okay? So far what we've done is we have looked at this idea and we say, stick by the source. Okay? So that was 2 weeks ago. We then said, be godly, which is take God's view on things. I didn't write in all caps. I heard about you. All right? And I got eyes everywhere. No, but the last one is take the long, there we go. This is for Rocky. All right? Take the long view on things. You're not thinking short term. You're thinking long term. And what you're trying to do is say, all right, whatever happens, as David or others would say, yet though he slay me, what? Yet will I serve him. Yet will I love him. Like, I don't care what happens to me. There's something bigger than me at play. And look at what Hebrews 11 does, because Hebrews 11 is calling us to live a life by faith. So I think we very easily could make the connection between a just man and a man who is living by faith, because the Bible literally puts those together and says, the just shall live by his faith. Okay, so just and faith are the same. To use what we went over in service this morning, have faith in God. And then he starts talking about all the persecution they're about to suffer. But I want to look at this verse because, again, Proverbs says that a just man will fall 7 times, like a complete destruction, yet he'll get back up. Look at what Hebrews 11 does. It says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good report. Through faith, we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, and so that the things which were not made, the things which are seen were not made by the things which do appear. Okay, all well and good. By faith, Abel offered unto God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain. He obtained witness that he was righteous. God testified of his gifts. By it the dead yet speaketh. Okay, hold on a sec. That guy died. Okay, just man falleth 7 times, rises up again. He didn't. He didn't get back up. He's dead. But again, sticking close to the source, he did that. He was godly, definitely did that. He had the long view of things, as best we know, he did that. But he got completely destroyed. He's obliterated. He's dead. Okay? By faith, Enoch was translated that he should not see death. That's good. But he was not found because God had translated him. Before he was translated, he had this testimony that he pleased God. So Enoch, stuck by the source, he was close to God, he was godly, he had a long view, obviously, and he was removed from the earth. He didn't die, but he was gone. Okay, so he's gone. Okay, keep going. But without faith, it is impossible to please him. Okay, so a just man is going to be someone who pleases God. A just man is going to be someone who lives for God. A just man is going to be someone who follows along on the heels of what God wants. And it says, for he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Okay, that's all well and good, but the reward often seems to come with death. Okay, but what are we missing? The long view. The long view. If I live 20 years here on earth, and I serve the Lord with those 20 years, and then he chooses to say, that's it, that's all you get. Okay, I get eternity with Christ. It's not about, oh man, I had a really good life here. In fact, Christ says, you will be persecuted. It's not about the life here. It's the long view. Okay? And I want you to see where this keeps going. By faith, Noah, being warned of God of things that not seen as yet, moved with fear, prepared an ark to the saving of his house, by which he condemned the world and became an heir of the righteousness which is by faith. So he made it through. That's good. Okay, so we had death, removal, a lot of other death that isn't mentioned, and this guy made it through. Good. Okay, so we got one on the lived side, lived for a good long time, and we got a whole bunch on the dead side. Again, but they took the long view. They chose to serve God. They chose to do it God's way. Okay? By faith Noah, by faith Abraham, when he was called to go out to a place which he would afterward receive for inheritance, he went out, not knowing whither he went. By faith he sojourned in the land of promise. For about 25 years, he wandered around. And you go, that just doesn't sound pleasant or nice or fun. But that's not the point. He received the promise, and he was considered a friend of God. Okay? So he stuck by the source, very clearly. He was godly in that he did it God's way, thought God's thoughts after him, and he had the long view. He didn't live for the temporary. He didn't live for what was right in front of him. Again, if we go back to Proverbs 21, do not envy the evildoer. Do the hard stuff. Do the hard work. Do the work that serves the Lord. And it's summarized by these 3 points. He says he looked for a city who hath foundations, whose builder and maker was God. Through faith also Sarah herself received strength to conceive seed, and that she was delivered of a child when she was past age, because she judged him faithful who had promised. She lived for 90 years without able to have a child, till she was basically going, yeah, all the mechanisms are dead. There's absolutely no way I could possibly have a kid now. So whatever happens now has to be a work of God. And it says, she judged him faithful who had promised. Now, was Sarah perfect? No. Like, she laughed, when God said, next year you're going to have a kid. Sarah's first response was like, yeah, right, I'll believe that when I see it. Oh, she believed it and saw it. But she did have that moment of doubt. And very realistically, how often do we have those moments where everything goes south and we go, yeah, sure. I was up cleaning the pod this afternoon, our storage pod. And I'll be completely candid as pastor. Sometimes there's that feeling of failure that sets in, where you're looking at your entire church packed into a pod going, it kind of feels like this was my doing. I know it wasn't, But just being completely candid as a pastor, there's times where you look and you're like, oh, what's going on? And it was funny because I'm thinking through this message and I'm thinking through the idea that when we choose to live by faith, sometimes God puts us in a situation where we actually have to live by faith. And I'll be honest, as a guy, I don't like trite little like cutesy things. Okay? I'm not one of these guys who's like, oh, let's have our bumper sticker prayer slogans. Like I'm just not that type of guy. And so I'm sitting there standing in the pod, I'm thinking through this sermon and I'm praying, and I come upon this little plaque that used to hang above our door, and it said, don't tell God that you have a big problem, tell your problem that you have a big God. And the sarcastic side of me came out. I'll be completely candid. Okay? The sarcastic side of me came out and I was like, oh yeah. That's trite. Tell your problem how big your God is. And it was just one of those things that I'm just kind of standing there looking at all of the chaos that's in a pod going, okay, God, you know. You know this. No idea what the future holds. No idea what's going to... God, you know this. And I kind of like, the sign kind of irritated me, to be completely honest. All right? I just kind of saw it and I was like, okay, that's becoming a sermon illustration. And so I grabbed it and I start walking toward the door. And the funny thing is, God drew my attention to another sign that we had sitting around in the pod. And the other sign, and you guys know I'm a musical guy. I like music. And it was this song, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. Tune my heart to sing thy praise. And so here I am with the one going, and then he hits me with a song and just says, hey, are you praising the Lord for what he has done? Oh, sure. There's tons of problems, and yeah, bumper sticker prayers. They work and they don't. Whatever. Take it or leave it. But there's something about a song that says, have you taken a good hard look at the blessings that God has given you? I hate to be trite. It could be worse. I know one church, I told you about them last week. They literally have to pack their whole church up into a trailer and drive it back and forth to their house every week. Man, now that would be frustrating. Man, God has blessed us. It is amazing to sit back in all of the chaos and all of the weirdness and all of the stuff and go, I have no idea what the future holds. But you know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter a lick. Lord, adjust my heart to praise you. And sure, my problems are big and my God is bigger. Okay, cool. But man, I need to be thankful. I need to be thankful for what God has brought into my life. I need to be thankful for what God has done. And whatever God has, awesome. It's God's plan. It's God's work. Cool. And I mean, you can go and you can look at all the blessings that God has laid out. And what happens is we get looking at our problems, and this is actually true. Tell your problems how big your God is. But you just talk to God and you say, Lord, thank you. Thank you for being an awesome God. Thank you for being a great God. And you know what? If you make me wait 90 years and then I have that kid, cool. I'm going to laugh at it because it doesn't seem like it's possible. But you've done a lot of other miraculous stuff through the years, so I'm just kind of waiting to see what happens next. It's kind of cool. It doesn't feel cool in the moment. Doesn't feel fun in the moment. In fact, it's irritating in the moment. You think Abraham enjoyed it, wandering 25 years through the wilderness, trying to figure out where he was supposed to live? Probably not. And then once he had his kid, he raised the kid, did all his work with the kid, and then God's like, hey, guess what? I want you to go offer him as sacrifice. And at that point, Abraham's like, why not? Why not? Yeah, sure. I mean, I think Abraham was just wanting to get it done. So he's like, whatever you're going to do, God, let's do this quickly. I'm going to get up early in the morning. We're going to start this hike right away. I don't want to wait. Tune my heart to praise you. Tune my heart to fear your name. Lord, my heart is off tune right now. I need your adjustment. And I want you to see that because, again, you've got these people who get irritated with God because he makes them wait. He knocked them down once, knocked them down twice, knocked them down 3 times, knocked them down 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7th time, total knockout. Quite literally, several of these guys died. And yet God is faithful. How does that work? It's because they were thinking long term. They were thinking, there is something that will endure beyond my death. There's something that will last beyond me. Abraham was a man of faith because he said, there's going to be a lineage that goes on beyond me. There's going to be a land beyond me. There's going to be a promise beyond me. I'm going to die, and I will not see any of this have come to pass. But the next generation, and the generation after that, the generation after that, that's what matters. And look where he goes. He goes, through faith Sarah conceived. There sprang even of one as good as dead, as many as the stars of the sky in multitude, the sand which is by the seashore innumerable. And look at this, verse 13. All of these died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off. And they were persuaded of them, and they embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrim on the earth. And so what did they do? They came and they said, nothing I do here is going to last, so I might as well invest in something that will. Nothing I do here is going to last beyond me. So why don't I invest in something that pleases God and has the long view of things? And that is how the just man can fall completely, yet still get back up. Because it's God who's doing a work through this guy. And so he might be dead, like quite literally dead. But God's still continuing the work through him. Otherwise, he's going to die anyway, and the work won't continue anyway. So you can either die, and your stuff dies with you, or you can die, and the work will continue. And look at this, it's verse 14. For they that say such declare plainly that they seek a country. And truly, if they had been mindful of that country from whence they came out, they might have had opportunity to return. But now they desire a better country, that is a heavenly, whereof God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared for them a city. By faith, Abraham, when he was tried, he offered up Isaac. And so in God's eyes, the offering of Isaac was as good as done. Because it was done in faith, it didn't physically happen. But God said, it's as good as done. Spiritually speaking, you offered Isaac. I mean, you got that knife up and you were like, right, as good as done. And it says, Abraham offered Isaac, and it says, of whom he said, Isaac shall thy seed be called. And here's how Abraham offered up Isaac. He counted that God was able to raise him up even from the dead, from whence he also received him in a figure. Abraham was so convinced that God was going to do something that he said, even if I do have to kill my kid, God's going to just raise him from the dead. So might as well just go. It was as good as done. Because he sought the eternal country. He sought long term. By faith, Isaac and Jacob and Esau and Joseph. I love this one in verse 22. By faith, Joseph, when he died, made mention of his departing of the children of Israel and gave commandments concerning his bones. Said, you guys are going to leave this place in a few hundred years. I want you to take me with you. He didn't make them go take him right away. He said, go ahead, leave me in my tomb. Whatever you're going to do, I don't really care. I'm dead. But take me with you when you go. Just put me in a suitcase and we'll be fine. And they did. I don't know if they packed him in a suitcase. They probably put him in a little bit of a nicer box. But they just packed him up and they took him with them, which is the weirdest thing if you stop and think about it. But look at this. By faith, Moses, when he came to years, he refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin, what? For a season. Proverbs 24. Don't you be envious of the evildoers. Don't you shirk your responsibilities. You make the hard choices. You do the right thing because God's going to judge one way or another, and you might as well have God on your side because you're pleasing him. And Moses looked at this and went, oh, I could choose to do it my way and have a lot of pleasure right now as the prince of Egypt. Or I could do it God's way and have the most miserable job for 40 years. Well, God has chosen that I am going to have the most miserable job for 40 years. But at least after that, I'll be dead. And that really is what happened. He just chose. I'm going to do it God's way. I'm not going to live in the pleasures of sin for a season. He stuck by the source. He took God's view on things, and he took the long view. And that's the secret. And that is how the just can fall completely, yet still get back up. Because it's not about the man. It's about what he was called. It's his God who called him to do things. So we physically might be dead. We might be gone. We might be completely obliterated from this planet. Cool. But we're serving the Lord, and there's an eternity benefits from. Look where it keeps going. Than the treasure of Egypt, for he had respect unto the recompense of the reward. By faith he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. Through faith he kept the Passover, the sprinkling of blood, should touch them. By faith they passed through the Red Sea as with dry ground, which the Egyptians assaying to do so were drowned. By faith the walls of Jericho fell down after they were compassed about 7 days. Just a crazy story that he throws in there. I mean, imagine, the whole way you conquer a city is by literally walking around it a whole bunch of times. There are times where God's going to say, hey, congrats, I got a weird side quest for you. You're going to walk around this city for 7 days. Why? Just do it. And then the city falls over, except for this little part that doesn't. And God says, I can do those things. I mean, you think about Naaman. He's not mentioned. But Naaman, it's like, I have leprosy. And it's like, okay, go wash in that river. What are you talking about, go wash in that river? That's a dirty river. It's like, just go do it. God does some things that he just says, do you trust me? Do you trust me to do it my way? Or are you going to look around you and go, that seems to succeed. I need to go do it that way. Look where it keeps going. It says, what more shall I say? For time would fail me to tell of Gideon and Barak and Samson and Jephthah and David also and Samson of the prophet, who through faith subdued kingdoms, who wrought righteousness, obtained proverbs, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, waxed valiant in fight, turned to flight the armies of the aliens. Women received their dead raised to life again. And the time it takes to take a breath, suddenly the entire narrative pivots, and we're back to, does the just man fall 7 times and get up again? And Hebrews 11 says, but others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection. They could have just given in. They could have abandoned God. They could have pled for mercy and gotten out of it by lying or deceiving. And no. We're doing a better thing here. It says that others had trials of cruel mockings and scourgings, yea, moreover, bonds and imprisonment. They were stoned. They were sawn asunder. They were tempted. They were slain with the sword. They wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins. They were destitute, afflicted, tormented. Health and wealth gospel right there. All right? I mean, I don't know if Joel Osteen ever preached on this one. All right? But look at that. This is not happy-go-lucky Christianity time. This is, you sign up for this and your skin comes off. Can I take the dead raised back to life plan? But we don't get to choose. And so again, the just man will fall completely. But in essence, he gets right back up. Now, it could be physically. Hey, he's tortured. He got right back up. But it could be more of a spiritual look. Yeah, he's dead. But his message gets right back up and keeps going. He got a better resurrection. Got more reward. And it says that, verse 38, of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in deserts, in mountains, in dens, and caves of the earth, and all these, having obtained a good report through faith, received not the promise. They never got to see the Messiah. They never got to see the fulfillment of all the things they were living for, figuratively speaking. They all died in faith, because what you don't see is faith. The moment you see it, it's not faith anymore. All of these died, never having seen the actual promise. But they still said, nope, we're going to stay faithful. In the midst of an unfaithful people, unfaithful land, we're going to just keep by the stuff. And if we get completely obliterated, we know that God will keep working. They had that long view. And it says this, God, having provided some better thing for us, that they without us should not be made perfect. So he let us see this fulfillment. That's why verse 12, verse 1 says, wherefore, seeing we are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses. This huge crowd, all attesting to the same thing. It's like you're sitting in a courtroom. You got this whole crowd of witnesses that have walked into the courtroom saying the exact same thing. And it's like, Well, what are you going to believe if every single witness said the exact same thing? We are surrounded by this great cloud of people all witnessing to the exact same event, the exact same truth. It says, let us lay aside every weight. And that sin, the sin that doth so easily beset us. And let us run with patience the race that is set before us, looking unto who? Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. It says, who, for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. He despised the shame. And now he is set down on the right hand of God. So it's a beautiful loop that comes all the way around. It says faith is going to be that thing where you don't see it. Let's give you a whole list of all the people who lived and died by faith. And we're going to cap it off with the chief one of all, Jesus himself. And then it pivots right around to say, so how could you possibly envy the evildoers? Or how could you possibly shirk your responsibilities as a Christian? Because you know that God's seeing. You know that God's going to judge. How could you possibly abandon that? The just man is going to be someone who gets back up. So evildoer, don't you dare threaten the good, because you know they're not going to be permanently dead. You know that you're not going to destroy them. If I go back to the sermon this morning, that temple isn't going to stand against the work of God. That fig tree is going to get wiped out from the roots. How can you not trust God in it? And so again, it's beautiful. One other passage we won't go to tonight, but I challenge you to read Matthew chapter 7. Jesus gives a parable of the house that was built on a rock and the house that was built on sand. I'll summarize it. You know it. The only difference between those two, they're both hit with the same storm, both hit with the same chaos, both hit with the same waves. One is built on a rock, and one is built on the sand. If you've ever built on sand, you know it's really easy to do. You built on rock, you know it's really hard to do. And we're asked to build our life on the rock. We're going to get hit with the same storm. We're going to hit with the same carnage, same chaos. But that's why the Bible will say that just man, he will be the type who can get back up, because his house was founded on the rock. And so that's where, again, Hebrews 11, Matthew 7, Proverbs 24. Let us close with questions or